So we have talked about the single circulatory system and the double circulatory system. And now we have to introduce the terms. Okay, so the pump, now we have understood the pump. The pump is the heart. So imagine that this is the heart and the pump. When you pump the heart, the pressure inside the chamber will get higher and it will push the blood to go out of the heart. So what do we call that blood vessels, which is carrying the blood away from the heart? We call those arteries. Artery, yep. And the ones that are responsible for carrying the blood back to the heart with low pressure, because they don't have any secondary pump running behind them. So we call them veins. And again, we can call some smaller arteries arteriole. And again, we can call some smaller veins venules. And then finally in the organ, the arterioles carrying the blood will end up in an organ. So in an organ, we have to let the gas exchange and the exchange of nutrients happen. And then we need something called capillaries. So the capillaries are the side like this to allow gas exchange and the nutrient exchange to happen. So they have small vessels, higher surface area to volume ratio to allow everything to go nice and smooth. So we call them capillaries. Okay, now we have mapped out the circulatory system. The heart is a pump. The blood vessels are subdivided into high pressure blood vessels. The blood vessels carrying the high pressure blood called artery, and the smaller ones are called arterioles. And the blood vessels that can carry the low pressure blood and they can carry the blood back towards the heart are called veins, and the smaller ones are known as venules. Okay, and then in the organs there will be a lot of capillaries, like the blue one, the yellow one. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how our heart operates. Now we know that the heart has two chambers, the right and the left. Okay, the right and the left heart. The right and the left heart is separated by they must be separated, right? Because the pressure in the right side is different from the pressure in the left side, so they must be separated to prevent the mixing of the blood together, so that the oxygen cannot be the deoxygenated blood from the right side cannot be mixed up with the oxygenated blood from the left side. And the pressure, also the pressure is very, very high on the left side, so that high pressure blood must not be mixed up with the low pressure blood on the right side. So two different sides must be separated. So we need something called a septum. So a septum is a muscular wall that can separate both sides of the heart. Okay, now we get it. We get the both sides of the heart, and again, now we have to think the heart chamber. So is this a one whole heart chambers, or there's two chambers, or maybe there are receiving chambers and the pumping chambers? Yes, we are correct. So သူ့မှာပါရှိနေလဲဆိုတော့အပေါ်ကန်းတွေက upper chamber စီက ညှိရမယ်ကောင်းနေလက်ခံမယ်ကောင်းနေအောက်ကကောင်းနေကညှိရမယ်ကောင်းနေဆိုပြီးနှစ်ပိုင်းခွဲသွား so upper chambers and lower chambers upper chambers ကိုပါခေါ်လဲဆိုတော့ atrium လို့ခေါ်တယ် gateway plural ဆိုတော့ atria ပေါ့ lower chambers ကိုကြတော့ ventricle လို့ခေါ်တယ် so the atriums and the ventricles. The atrium and the ventricles are responsible chambers. The atriums are the receiving blood from the veins, and the ventricles are responsible for pumping the blood towards the artery. Okay, that's a basic concept of the body. Upper kind of atrium, outer kind of ventricle. So those are the terms. ဒါပေမဲ့အဲ့လိုမျိုးဒါဆိုရင်ညှစ်မယ်ဆိုရင်အကြမ်းများဖြင့်သူတို့ပုံစံတွေကဘယ်လိုပုံစံရှိတယ်ဆိုတော့မူရင်းခုနကတွေးထားတဲ့အတိုင်းပေါ့နော် original တွေးထားတဲ့အတိုင်းပြန်ပြောရင်ညာဘက်ချမ်းကခန္ဓာကိုယ်နဲ့ပြန်လာ so I'm going to draw like this so I'm going to remove the septum right here တကူလုံးကနေပြန်လာ this is the body တကူလုံးကနေပြန်လာတော့ oxygen ပါပါမလားပေါ့ပါပါမလား so without oxygen because oxygen has been used up in the body due to respiration of the body မှာ oxygen ပဲရှိနေမှာရှိမနေတော့ပြန်လာတဲ့ခါ oxygen မပါဘူးပေါ့ so ဒါဆိုရင်အဲ့လိုမျိုး back towards the heart ဆိုရင်နာမည်ပါပေးရမလား it's easy back towards the heart ဆိုရင်စဉ်းစားထားပြီးသားရှိရော back towards the heart ဆိုရင် vein လို့ခေါ်တယ် so we must call it a vein but the problem is it is very very large because it carries all the blood from the body. So actually they are very very big and they can be classified into two parts because the one vein carries the blood from the upper body and the other vein carries the blood from the lower body. So one is superior vena cava and the another one is inferior vena cava. Why are they called like that? So actually cava means in Latin it is cave. So vena cava means it is a cave-like vein. So Gilo densabi we call them vena cava. Cave-like veins. So I vena cava they got na chong di the win. Lodo zero di ma diagrammatic bones or the chong in the diagram. Okay. So the blood is now into the right atrium. Yep. This is right atrium because we know that the upper chambers are called atria and this is on the right, so we call it right atria. And the right atria got here like Bobby there. When the right atrium pumps, the blood will be pushed downwards into the right ventricle. Right ventricle here like the right ventricle and Tolabi. Okay. Right ventricle Tola Kajai. I told her to eat. Lungs will dominate, yes. For the gas exchange. Yes, we know that already. Being I go on a piano, so left atrium piano. Yep. Bobby, first thing first. That's when your lungs will do it back home. So lungs and the main lungs and the mega Latin sorry. Pulmonary. Also in Holy Chowny. Heart bagani we are udwara so we call it artery be udwara le lungs udwara da so yin loye tu name ba pe de we call it pulmonary artery. It's very easy pulmonary artery because the lungs the name of the lungs in Latin is pulmonary and this is an artery. So how do you know that it is an artery? It is an artery because it is away carrying the blood away from the heart, so it is an artery. That's what about the blood vessels carrying the blood away from the lungs? Okay, what about it? So we know the direction. So it is back towards the heart. So we know that it is a vein. So we call it pulmonary vein. So it's easy. The name of the lungs is pulmonary. So away from the heart, artery, back towards the heart, vein. So we call it pulmonary artery and pulmonary vein. So drop the misconception that all arteries carries oxygenated blood and that nonsense. That is going on get target level. Artery to vein to correct kajai. Bawe don't be a college so Tikaga. Pressure blood go away from the heart vein, artery vein. Pressure blood go back towards the heart piantelar as a vein. Baby, done. အဲ့တိုင်းမြင်တဲ့တွေ့ပါဘယ်တော့မှ oxygen ပါတယ် oxygen မပါတယ်ထည့်ပြီးစဉ်းစားကြမလို့ပါဘူး artery က oxygen ပါမှတည်ကြလို့လားမဟုတ်ပါဘူး artery means that it is responsible for carrying with blood with high pressure အဲ့ကြောင့် artery ဆိုရင် high pressure ကိုသိနိုင်တယ်ဆိုတော့အစွမ်းရှိတယ်ဆိုတော့ idea concept ပဲရှိနေရမယ်oxygen ပါတာမပါတာသူကိစ္စမဟုတ် so okay that being said when we move on we're going to arrive at the left atrium because it is on the left and it's our upper chamber, and then when the left atrium contracts and the blood is pumped into the left ventricle, and after that the left ventricle in real life is very thick and strong. They are very strong, muscular left ventricle, so very strong. Okay, so because they are responsible for pumping the blood towards the body, whole body, right? So we have to call that blood vessels that is carrying the highest blood pressure inside our body in our circulatory system. We call it aorta. So it is also an artery because it is away from the heart. So it is named such name, aorta. It is also the biggest artery of our body. So all in all, that's it. That's the main concept. So how about oxygen? If you think about the oxygen is exchanged right here in the lungs. So the pulmonary vein will contain oxygenated blood. The left atrium oxygenated blood, left ventricle oxygenated blood, and the aorta oxygenated blood. And then the body, the oxygenated blood will be used up. And then the oxygenated blood, vena cava, the oxygenated blood, pulmonary artery, the oxygenated blood, and right atrium, the oxygenated blood, right ventricle, the oxygenated blood. Yes. That's the concept of it. Okay. But that is not the complete picture of how the heart works, right? So the complete picture needs the door system, or in other words, the valves. Yes, we need to introduce the valve. So in this picture, you can clearly see that I draw some peculiar structures right here, and here. Okay, so those structures are responsible for preventing the blood being pushed back into the backwards chambers. For example, if the right atrium contracts, yes, the blood will be pushed down into the right ventricle. But when the right ventricle contracts again, pushing the blood with a high pressure, the blood might be pushed back into the right atrium. But we don't want that to happen, because if that were to happen, then the blood will be, it's like a seesaw, right? It is being pushed forward as it is being pushed backwards, so it would not be moving anywhere. We don't want that to happen, so we want the blood to move only forward in directions. So what we want to do is installation of a door system. So this is like a door. So between the right atrium and the right ventricle, there's a doorway. So when the right atrium contracts, yes, the blood will be pushed this way. But if the right ventricle contracts again, the blood will not be pushed backwards, because it's like a door. For normal doors, the wooden doors, you cannot push or pull at the same time. If you want to open the door, you can pull or you can push. Yes, that is the mechanism of the door. Yes, it's just like that. So it is not muscular. It is not some very strange phenomena. It is just a door. So when you push from inside, the door won't budge. I take up pointမှာမဟုတ်ဘူးဘာလို့လဲဆိုတော့တကားပေါင်နဲ့ခံနေလို့အဲ့အတိုင်းပဲပေါင်နဲ့ခံနေတော့သူကအထက်ကနေပြန်ပွင့်မှာမဟုတ်ဘူးအဲ့ဒါဆိုရင်အဲ့အပေါ် valve ကပိတ်သွားတယ်ပဲအကယ်၍ right ventricle အောက်ကကောင်ကညှစ်ချလိုက်တယ်သူတွေကအောက်ကိုဆင်းသွားတယ်ပဲအောက်ကိုဆင်းချသွားမယ်ဆင်းချသွားတဲ့သူတွေအကုန်လုံးကဟိုဘက်ကိုသွားမယ်အကယ်၍မညစ်တော့ဘူးဆိုရင် relax လုပ်တယ်ဆိုတော့သူတွေကပြန်ဆင်းလာလို့ရသေးလားမရတော့ because one way door တွေ so they are actually one way door ဒါပေမဲ့ valves က၄កောင်ရှိတော့၄កောင်လုံးကိုဒီတိုင်းပဲရှောက်နာမည်တွေရှောက်ပြောနေလို့နာမည်မပါဘဲနဲ့ရှောက်ပြောနေလို့မရအောင် so we need to name them so we need to name them as we need to name them we have to think of a way so we got A let me name them A B C D okay so the A valve and the B valve are located conveniently between the atrium and the ventricles so we call them very easy we give them very easy name atrioventricular valves which means that they are located between the atrium and the ventricle so atrioventricular valves the C and D those valves are located between the ventricle and the pulmonary artery and the aorta but we don't have a name for it so when we give a thought on its structures they look like the crescent moon so the valves တွေကလာချမ်းပုံနဲ့ရန်တူတာပဲအဲဆိုရင် we gave them those names semilunar valves yes so in general all in all there's a total picture of how human circulatory system works